The first champagne flute shattered before anyone understood why. Crystal hit marble, golden bubbles and shards skittering across the floor as the music from the string quartet died mid-note. "What?" Victoria Langford said, voice slicing through the chandelier-lit dining room. "Is this supposed to be?" She held her fork out from her plate like it was diseased. At the other end of the room, half in the shadow of the kitchen doorway, the maid, dark skin catching the light, curls tucked into a simple headscarf, stood perfectly still, hands folded over a plain black apron. "It's not stew, ma'am," she said quietly. I didn't ask you to speak," Victoria snapped, pushing her chair back so hard it screeched. 30 guests froze with forks halfway to their mouths. Gowns rustled, cufflinks glinted. "I asked you to cook something fancy, something worthy of this table. Not this." The smell in the room betrayed her. Rich oxtail braised in red wine, thyme and smoked paprika drifting under the chandeliers. Creamy grits like silk beneath a glossy sauce. A couple of guests had clearly been mid-pleasure sigh before deciding it was safer to go still. At the head of the table, billionaire tech mogul Samuel Langford shifted, jaw tight. His gaze flicked from his wife to the maid. Behind the maid, the kitchen door was propped open. Staff lined the threshold, the chef, servers, even the florist who'd lingered to take photos. Witnesses, pinned in place by the weight of money and hierarchy. "Look at their faces," Victoria said, brittle laughter ringing off the vaulted ceiling. "You turned my charity gala into a highway diner. I asked you to step up, dear, to cook fancy, and you thought this was appropriate?" Eyes slid away from the maid, to napkins, to cutlery, to anything safer. She stood there and took it, chest rising and falling slowly, not shrinking, not crying, just absorbing it. Have you ever watched someone's dignity dragged across the floor in a room where the flour budget could pay your rent for a year? Have you ever felt every muscle in your body lock while you decide if you'll keep your head down and stay safe? Or open your mouth and risk everything? Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittered along the coastline. The Langford estate crowned the hill above it all. White columns and glass walls, the kind of place helicopter shots loved. The dining room was a temple to wealth. 20-foot ceilings. A table so long it needed its own ecosystem of staff. Hand-blown chandeliers dripping light onto gold-rimmed plates and crystal stemware. Each place marked by a looping calligraphed name card. The guests were the city's highest orbit. Senators, venture capital partners, tech founders, an NBA star, 2 celebrity chefs, and a food critic whose words could birth or bury a restaurant overnight. The string quartet in the corner had gone silent under Victoria's voice, bows hovering midair. At the center of it all stood Victoria herself. White gown like armor, diamonds sharp as ice, hair in a flawless chignon. When she smiled, she was the face of philanthropy. When she wasn't smiling, the room belonged to her fear. Near the doorway, the maid, Zuri, might as well have been part of the wall. On the seating chart, she was house staff. On the payroll, domestic service. In most people's minds, nothing at all. But she noticed everything. Who tipped, who forgot, who looked her in the eye, who waved a hand like they were swatting a fly. She'd been invisible here for 2 years. Before this house, there had been others. Before the apron with someone else's monogram, there had been a chef's jacket with her own name stitched onto the chest. Before quiet hallways and polished silence, there had been a tiny restaurant with peeling paint, jazz records, and heat that soaked through her bones as she ran the line. There had been a dream. Zuri's place. her grandmother's recipes, Southern and West African roots plated with French technique. Lines out the door on Fridays, regulars who dropped their shoulders and breathed when they walked in. Then her father died. Then the hospital bills multiplied. Then one burst pipe, and 3 slow months took the restaurant down. The landlord hadn't cared about the spices or the stories. He'd cared about the missed payments. So she'd taken this job. Consistent pay, health insurance, the chance to quietly keep her mother and younger sister afloat. She worked. She nodded. She swallowed benevolent comments like, "You're so articulate. You must be so grateful to be here. You people really know how to cook, don't you?" Tonight was supposed to be simple. Oversee the usual catering. Stay in the background. Keep the engine running while rich people performed generosity. 3 hours before guests arrived, the crisis hit. The catering company called in full meltdown. Half their staff down with food poisoning, head chef in the hospital. No way to produce a 12-course tasting menu for 30. Victoria had gone pale, then red. "Do you have any idea who is coming tonight?" She hissed into the phone. "You are finished." She hung up and turned on the kitchen like a searchlight. "You cook, don't you?" she demanded, eyes locking on Zuri. "Yes, ma'am," Zuri said. Good. Then here's your moment." Her heels clicked hard against the marble as she paced. "Our chef will plate and assist, but you will design the menu. I want Michelin level, elevated, elegant. No comfort food. You understand? Cook fancy." The staff went silent. The housekeeper shot Zuri a warning look. The resident chef folded his arms, skeptical. Zuri nodded. Because she needed the job. Because this was not a gift. It was a trap wrapped in the language of opportunity. She had 4 hours. Her hands shook for 5 minutes. Then memory took over. Grandmother at the stove, wrist flicking a wooden spoon through a pot of roux. Mother humming over collard greens after a double shift. Uncle telling stories about crossing oceans while smoke from the grill curled around them. If they wanted fancy, she'd give them fine dining built on the bones of the people who hadn't been allowed in rooms like this. She scribbled a menu. Smoked shrimp on sweet potato blini with lemon aioli. Charred okra with preserved lemon and crispy shallots. Oxtail braised in burgundy and cocoa nibs over white cheddar grits. Blackened sea bass with citrus beurre blanc and pickled green tomatoes. Dark chocolate tart with bourbon caramel and pecan praline. The chef frowned. "This is, soul food." Zuri met his gaze. "It's soul food with French technique and rich people plating," she said. "Trust me. If they saw this at a pop-up in Brooklyn, they'd call it genius." He stared for a beat, then nodded once. "Let's move." The kitchen became a storm. Pans sang, ovens blazed, butter browned. Zuri called out times and temperatures, tasted, adjusted, layered flavors like chords. The staff watched her, then followed. She stepped back into the body she'd abandoned when the restaurant closed. She didn't notice Victoria in the doorway, arms folded, eyes calculating. The first courses left the kitchen. Plates came back clean. Muted hums of surprise drifted in. The senator mumbled, "Didn't expect it to be this good." The celebrity chef toyed with his fork, thoughtful. The food critic wrote in his notebook, unreadable. Then the oxtail went out. The dish that carried her grandmother's hands and her own scars. 20 minutes later, the champagne flute exploded. "Comfort food," Victoria scoffed now, glaring at her guests' plates. "I give you a chance and you serve nostalgia." She looked at Zuri like she was a stain on her gown. Zuri heard the roaring in her ears, felt 30 elite eyes on her, thought of bills, of rent, of how easy it would be to say, "I'm sorry, ma'am," and survive the night. She took one step forward instead. "Ma'am," she said, voice steady, "may I explain the dish to your guests?" Victoria stared like she'd suggested karaoke. "Explain?" Her laugh was sharp. "You want to present?" Silence pressed on them. The chef froze. The servers held their breath. Even the critic paused his pen. "Yes," Zuri said. Something in her tone made a few people straighten. She stood fully in the doorway now, in between the stainless steel world that knew her and the crystal world that didn't. "You asked me to cook fancy," she said, projecting her voice down the table. "I did. The oxtail is French technique. Slow braise, deglazed with burgundy, finished with a cocoa nib reduction. The grits are stone ground, cooked low for 2 hours, finished with aged cheddar and roasted bone marrow." Someone murmured, "Ah, that's what that flavor is." "The inspiration is black," she continued. "Southern, West African. Food made by people who turned scraps into feasts. People who worked in houses like this and were never allowed to sit where you're sitting. I used fine dining techniques on their recipes. That's what you're eating." The room changed. Maybe it was the way some guests suddenly looked guilty about the jokes they'd told earlier. Maybe it was the way others looked, moved. The food critic cleared his throat. "Where did you train?" he asked. He didn't look at Victoria, only at Zuri. "I didn't go to culinary school," she said. "I learned in my grandmother's kitchen and on the line in my own restaurant." "Your restaurant?" the celebrity chef cut in. "Had," Zuri corrected softly. "We lost it a few years ago." The woman in the black suit, seated halfway down the table, set down her fork with care. "For the record," she said, "this is the best dish I've had in months, and I build my schedule around eating." A small wave of relieved chuckles. Shoulders dropped. Somebody finally exhaled. The critic closed his notebook. "I was going to write about tonight as a typical rich people fundraiser," he said. "Now I'm writing about her." "Her?" Victoria snapped. "She's a maid, Victor." "And I'm a critic," he replied calmly. "Not your decoration." He turned to Zuri again. "This menu is cohesive, technically impressive, and deeply personal. That's rare." Murmurs vibrated around the table. "She's very composed. Those grits, though. I'd pay good money for this." Samuel finally stood. "How much time did you have?" he asked Zuri. 4 hours, sir," she said, "with prep." "And you pulled this off?" His eyes swept the table, empty plates, faces still thinking. "This entire menu?" "With the team's help," she said. "But yes, I designed it." The center of gravity shifted. Attention peeled away from the woman in the white dress and settled on the black woman in the black apron. Victoria felt it. You could see it in the way her fingers dug into her napkin. "This has gone far enough," she said, voice tight. "We're all impressed with the Maid story, but this is my home. My name is on this invitation. We're not turning my gala into a reality show audition." She turned her stare on Zuri like a weapon. "Clean up the glass," she ordered. "We're done." No one moved. The woman in the black suit tilted her head. "What's your name?" she asked. Zuri blinked. "Zuri Johnson." "Do you currently have a supper club, Ms. Johnson? A pop-up? Anything?" No," Zuri said. "The loss sat heavy even now. We used to have a place. It closed." "Would you open another one?" the woman asked, "if you had the funding?" A hard, hot beat of silence. Zuri's heart thudded. "Yes," she said before her fear could jump in. "I would." The woman's slow smile was the kind that made people nervous in boardrooms. "I like decisive people," she said. "I'm always looking for founders who execute under pressure. Samuel, we should talk. I've been searching for a hospitality investment that isn't just another sterile rooftop." "You cannot be serious," Victoria burst out. "You'd put capital behind our maid because she served you." "She served us vision," the woman cut in. "Also oxtail. Both were excellent." The critic nodded. "If she opens a restaurant, I'll cover it. People are exhausted by soulless tasting menus designed for Instagram. They want food with memory." The celebrity chef took off his glasses, cleaning them slowly. "If you want help designing a kitchen," he told Zuri, "call my assistant. I don't usually lend my name, but I'd stand behind this." It felt like the floor moved beneath her. The kitchen doors, the marble, the chandeliers, all blurred. Samuel's voice grounded her. "The foundation I launched last year," he said, looking at Victoria now, "was supposed to support minority-owned businesses. We've been searching for a flagship culinary project that isn't just for optics." He shifted his attention back to Zuri. "I'd like to set up a meeting with you tomorrow, with our team, our foundation director. No guarantees until we see a plan. But you've already proven the most important part." "Which is what?" Victoria demanded. "That she can deliver," he said simply. Zuri swallowed hard. I'd like that very much, sir." The staff in the doorway beamed. The sous chef quietly wiped at his eyes. The dishwasher ducked back to hide his grin. "Everyone has lost their minds," Victoria muttered. "All of you. You're being manipulated by a sob story and gravy." The critic looked at her like he was finally seeing her clearly. "Food is never just food," he said, "especially not in houses like this." Then, to the room, "Shall we let the chef finish her menu?" The word hung there. Chef. Someone started clapping. It was awkward at first, then stronger. A few guests whistled. The quartet, sensing the cue, picked up a warm melody. The applause rolled toward the kitchen doorway. Zuri felt it hit her. This sound she'd heard in small rooms years ago, never in a palace like this. Her eyes burned. She bowed her head, this time not in submission, but in gratitude. Then she turned. "We've got dessert to plate," she called back to her team, voice ringing with something new. The rest of the night played like a film. Sea bass so delicate the senator briefly forgot to be important. Chocolate tart so deep and bittersweet it made a hardened VC close her eyes. More questions between courses now, about her grandmother, her spice blends, her old restaurant. "Send me a rough business plan," the VC said quietly at one point. "Bullet points, voice notes, I don't care. We'll help make it pretty. Just show us how you think." By the time the last guest left and the driveway emptied of black cars, the house sank back into silence. Chandeliers dimmed. The quartet was gone. The world outside glittered as if nothing had changed. In the kitchen, Zuri stood barefoot on cool tiles, staring at the now quiet stoves. Her body ached. Her mind hummed. Her phone buzzed. "Mom, how was work? Did the rich folk behave?" A laugh broke out of her, shaky and wet. She typed back. "They were interesting. I'll tell you everything. Mama, we might get our restaurant back." She hesitated, then added, "For real this time." She wiped her eyes when she heard footsteps. Samuel appeared, now tieless, sleeves rolled up, looking oddly human without the performance. "I won't keep you," he said. "I just wanted to say thank you. You didn't just save the gala. You reminded me what this was supposed to be about. I was just doing my job, she said automatically. He shook his head. Tonight was nowhere in your job description. He studied her. I'm also sorry it took a crisis for me to see you. Really see you. She didn't know what to do with that, so she nodded. Our office will email you first thing, he said. Contracts, meetings, all the boring stuff. His smile was small but sincere. Get some rest, chef. The word landed different this time. After he left, Zuri turned off the last light. In the reflection of the dark window, she saw herself. Same uniform, same headscarf, same tired eyes. But the way she stood, that was new. Shoulders back, chin up, like someone who'd remembered her own name. Tomorrow, people would read about a mysterious chef who had cooked in a billionaire's house and stunned the city's elite. Some would want to taste her food. Some would want to invest. Some would want to copy. None of them would know how many sinks she'd scrubbed in this same house. None of them would know how many times she'd been called just the help. Here's the thing no one at that table had said out loud. Talent doesn't check your tax bracket before choosing you. It doesn't ask whether you're wearing a custom suit or a borrowed uniform. It just waits, quietly, stubbornly, for the moment you finally step forward. For years they'd seen Zuri as hands, not mind. Service, not story. Tonight, under chandeliers that had never been meant to shine on her, she walked out of the shadows and showed them who had really been holding the room together all along. People will tell you that power is the right to define other people, to call them this or that, maid, help, background. But dignity is the moment you refuse to answer to someone else's small name for you. It's when a billionaire's wife laughs at the food that holds your history, and you still choose to speak the truth in a room full of witnesses. Houses like the Langfords will always exist. Rooms where some sit and some serve. That's the world we inherited. But every once in a while, someone from the serving line will step into the light, wipe their hands on their apron and say, "Actually, I built this." And when the room finally sees them, really sees them, the question quietly flips. It's no longer, is this person worthy of our table? It becomes, is our table worthy of them?